Tom Barton from TomBartonSports.com. Okay, look, we got the Mountain West Conference Championship, and for the last 6 years, it's been 6 different teams. First, let's start it. Let's back it up, and we'll start right from the beginning. And let's talk about March Madness is here. I know so many people go, yeah, March Madness is coming. When is the tournament? But it starts before the tournaments. It starts with the tournaments that lead into the big field of 64, 68, 102, however many teams are in it now. That's what it is. So March Madness has already begun. Now we have the conference tournament. I want to talk about the Mountain West Conference Tournament for a couple of reasons. Number one, I do radio in Las Vegas for more than 10 years. You guys can catch us on Fox Sports every Saturday and Sunday night over at 10 p.m. on Heatwave Sports 98.9 FM. And you guys can go check that out. So I actually have an invested interest into this, obviously. I've been doing this a long time. I consider myself, especially with the predictions that we've had, a little bit of an expert on the conference. I've made a lot of money on the conference also. Then, obviously, one of the big stories of the year is that it's a pretty weak field as far as dominant teams go this year. There just are not that, there's not that undefeated Kentucky. There's not that dominant ACC. The ACC is a little bit down this year. I know the Big East, I've railed about the Big East and how good they are, but generally speaking, people are saying, well, it's a wide open conference this year, a wide open tournament this year. So we talk about a conference, and we talk about a conference at San Diego State. Now, I caught some flack in Vegas. Listen, I still hold by that. Back when San Diego State was undefeated, I said, look, they're just not this team. They're not a team to go undefeated. They're not a team that's winning a national championship. As a matter of fact, they'd be middle of the pack in the ACC. And I still hold to that they would be definitely not one of the top 4 teams. And if you're talking about a 14-team league, the top 4 teams are the top, the bottom 4 teams are the bottom, right? And in that middle section is where San Diego State would be. I don't think that they're better than Duke. I don't think they're better than Florida State. I don't think that they're better than Virginia. I don't think that they are in that class. So this is to take nothing away from San Diego State, and you had a fine season, but the odds are showing that, yeah, people are not believing in San Diego State either. Now, they go out. They are a 15.5-point favorite at home with a chance to go undefeated and have a historic season, and they lose the game outright at home to UNLV. And we'll talk about UNLV as well. So, again, the Mountain West Conference Tournament has been won by 6 different teams the last 6 years. That's something to note. It is played on UNLV's home floor. That is a distinct advantage for some, in a form of let's put this together and let's make a bet on it. So I want to read off the all of the odds. Let's start it off. San Diego State is minus 2-1. A team that is historic. A team that has a chance at a number 1 overall seed. A team that had a chance at an undefeated season. Only 2-1 in a weak conference? That'll tell you something. Utah State plus 250. Utah State, very good team. You look at Utah State, and they're the defending champs from last year. Very good. We'll get back into that. I like the number at 250, but it's not that high. Look, I was hoping that Utah State, with this dominant San Diego State, I was hoping Utah State was going to come in at, I don't know, plus 500, plus 400. Maybe we're taking a stab. UNLV plus 1050. This is a pretty decent stab here. We're going to come back to UNLV because I'm tempted. Everybody wants to call me in Las Vegas the anti-UNLV guy. Look, I like them when they're good. I just call them out when they're bad. It's not that I don't like this team. 1050 got me intrigued. Nevada is 20-1 odds. Nevada's a good team, solid. They lost so much talent from last year, and they just lost so much from last year. I think there's a little bit of value there, but not at 20-1. Boise State 33-1. I'm not loving that. I think the price is right, but I'm not loving Boise State, and I have my reasons why. Colorado State 50-1. I like Colorado State. I think that this is an underrated team, but it's a long road to get to where they have to go. And 50-1, not enough. New Mexico State 75-1. Fresno State is 100-1. Air Force 200-1. San Jose State and Wyoming come in at 300-1. So let's just, for argument's sake, wipe out the teams. Wyoming, San Diego State 300-1. Look, they don't have a prayer. I'd be shocked if either one of them won a first-round game. Air Force is constantly just that team that is just beaten down early on, and I think they will be today. Then you get into the idea, and San Jose State as well. Then you get into the idea, by the way, there's a lot of high scoring. We will talk about that in a moment. I want to go through the teams, then I'm going to give you some totals. Fresno State 100 to 1. Here's an interesting team. If you really want to look at it and you want to talk about an interesting team, Fresno State might come into that. Only because they came in within 9 points twice against San Diego State. Here's the thing. They didn't play well against anybody else. If they happen to take on San Diego State, keep it in your mind, they play well. They came within 9, and you got to think that that number is going to be double digits at least if San Diego State has a chance, if Fresno State pulls off an upset, but I'm not taking the 100 to 1. New Mexico, Colorado State, not real threats. Boise State. Boise State at 33 to 1. Let's talk about this because I see people jumping on this. It started at like 40 to 1. It's down to 33 to 1. I see people jumping. I don't mind this Boise State team. I think they're efficient. I think it's a solid team. It's not a great team. It's a solid team. They got absolutely blown out by San Diego State twice this year by 17 and 18 points. That's got to sit in your mind somewhere. They can't compete if they get to the title game against San Diego State, unless you're hoping San Diego State gets knocked off somewhere. So I don't love that. Nevada 20 to 1. I briefly talked about them. Utah State is a good team. The defending champs, Merrill is averaging 19 points a game. They lost by 9 and 12 to San Diego State. That doesn't give you a lot of confidence. But this is a team that you look at and you go, okay, I get it. I get it. I get why they're number 2. I like the season that they had. They need a decent conference tournament showing here to get an at-large bid, which I think they will. I think they're going to sneak in because they should win 1 or 2 rounds here. But at plus 50, it's not enough. It's not enough to tempt me. Next up, we have a team in UNLV, plus 1050. Here's why I think there's good value here. 17 and 14 record doesn't do anything for you. Before the year began, I told you I thought they were going to win 15, 16 games. They had lulls during the season that just looked miserable, but they have a couple things working for them. Number one, they, as a 15.5 point dog, went on the road and beat San Diego State. But that's not all. That game, you could say it's fluky. San Diego State, nothing was dropping. Okay, whatever excuses you want to have. What about the game before that in UNLV? Came down to a last-second bucket. They lost by 4, but it really was a last-second bucket. It was within 30 seconds, the game was basically tied. UNLV played a great game, and they match up well against San Diego State. Something to think about. UNLV is also playing their best basketball right now. They just beat Boise State. They beat San Diego State on the road. They've won 5 games in a row. So that's something to absolutely keep in mind. San Diego State, you guys know how I feel about them. It's hard to bet against them in this tournament, despite how I feel about them. I've called them frauds, but I've called them frauds to people that believe that they should be a top 5 team in the country, to people that have said that they're a Final Four team. Let me tell you something about the idea of the NCAA tournament. You guys have heard me rail about this before. The NCAA tournament, not everyone can win. Can we stop that? Can we stop that right now? Since 1967, one team, in the history of the tournament, won that wasn't from a Power 5 conference. That was the 1990 UNLV Rebels. And while people my age into their 40s think 1990 was like 10 years ago, it wasn't. That's the only team that has ever won. So I don't like San Diego State in the tournament to get very far. Sweet 16, sure. I don't know about Elite 8. I don't know if I'm going to put them in my bracket in Elite 8, and that's kind of their high level mark. But in this tournament, it's very difficult to bet against them. If I'm going to take one team to bet against them, it would be UNLV. In a head-to-head matchup on your own floor, I kind of like UNLV a little bit. I'm going to like them plus the points. They're not going to be getting 15.5 points again, but they should be getting, 8, 9, depending on how the tournament rolls out. My problem is I don't know if UNLV is going to be okay to get to that point, and I don't think they are. So I don't see a lot of value here. If you want to throw a couple of bucks on UNLV for the value, for the number size, sure. I think Utah State has an opportunity here, but I don't like the plus 250. So what I'm going to concentrate on is some of the totals, and I want to throw some of these out at you because there are interesting totals all around. But the big total that I'm looking at, if Air Force takes on San Diego State in some way, shape, or form, which probably won't happen, San Diego State, if you take away the D2 team, San Diego Christian, scored the most points of the season on Air Force, a total of an over there. I love to bet round 2 and round 3 overs, especially on that UNLV court, which tends to be a good sight line and they score a lot. I like to bet the overs there when you have a dominant team coming out round 2. They're taking on a team that's tired. They just played. Legs are going to be a little bit tired. Defense goes first. That is situations and scenario. This is a conference where I don't think that the lines for the totals are going to be as high as they should. I'm looking at some totals. Obviously, everything is day to day. Not in round one, I don't love it. But in round two and moving on, watch the teams that had the day off, taking on the teams that didn't. Watch the totals, not necessarily the teams, because that's going to be built in. But the totals are something I think we can take advantage of. So that's it for me. That's the Mountain West Conference Tournament. It starts just a couple of hours. So enjoy it. Enjoy the conference tournament. San Diego State, listen, if you're hoisting the trophy at the end of March, well, which would be into April, if you're hoisting the trophy, I'm proven wrong, and I'll admit that I'm wrong. But can we calm down with the San Diego State talk? All right, that's going to be it for me. TomBartonSports.com. Have a good one.